Welcome to Bible by the Fire, where we study the Bible by a fire in DAYZ. This channel is out of control. Monday through Friday we play survival games. Sunday we set aside for this Bible study with the DAYZ ambiance of a fire. And I'm excited to share this time with you each and every week. Put any prayer requests in the comments below. And today we want to talk about being courageous and realizing that you are capable. You know, we all have different callings, we all have different giftings, we all have different weaknesses, and a lot of times we highlight the weaknesses that we see in our lives, and we lean into our weakness rather than realizing that we're capable of making a big difference in people's lives and in carrying out God's calling for our own life. I look at my grandfather. His name was Ed. We all called him Pataw. Grew up in the Midwest. Most of his life he lived in Illinois. Small farm town called Polo. Look it up. About 2,000 people live there. But Ed was born with a deformed leg. When I knew him as a kid, growing up, he had a wooden leg because as an adult, they had to amputate it. But through his childhood, he had his leg, but it was deformed and he couldn't really run at all. And because of that, you know, we're talking way back in the day, the other boys would play baseball in elementary school at their recess time and at their lunch time, and Ed would get to watch, but he'd never get to play. They'd never pick him on account of his leg. However, one day, a kid hit a foul ball and it bounced over the fence into the yard of a home, small farm, and it had a goat. And this goat was known to be a mean and angry goat. None of the kids wanted to go over that fence and get the ball because of that goat. The goat was known to be grumpy. And my grandfather, just as a child, raised his hand and volunteered. I'll go over the fence. I'll get the ball. And they all looked at him like, you'll go get the ball? And he said, I'll get the ball if you guys let me play. Well, they made a deal because no one else wanted to go get that ball. So Ed went over to that fence. The other boys helped lift him over that fence, and he fell on the other side of the fence with a kerplunk, clumsily, and it woke the goat up. And the goat looked over at young Ed and started to get ornery. They could tell he was going to charge Ed, try to ram him with his horns. And Ed looked back at his classmates and said, "Give me the bat." They tossed the bat over. He grabbed the bat. Sure enough, that goat came charging right at him. And Ed, like he was up to the bat, like he was up to the plate, he swung that bat and smacked that goat right in the head. Little 3rd or 4th grade kid going to battle with a goat. One good hit to the head, and the goat fell over. Ed hobbled over, grabbed the ball, threw it back to his classmates, threw the bat over the fence, and climbed. His friends helped him climb back over the fence to the other side, and they all looked nervously at the goat because the goat wasn't moving. All the kids were impressed at what Ed had just done, and they gave him his first at-bat. He had to have a designated runner. He couldn't run. But what the kids would find out is that although Ed couldn't run the bases, he could hit. His first pitch, he slammed the ball into a gap in left field, and his designated runner ran for a double. The kids' jaws dropped. They couldn't believe it. And Ed was known from that day on as one of the best hitters in the yard. But the rest of that day, the kids had to go back into class. They kept looking out the window nervously. The teacher couldn't tell what they were so obsessed with. They were hoping that goat got up, because if that goat's dead, they're all toast. And just before the final school bell rang, they saw the goat kind of staggering around the yard. And the next day, the goat was normal, and the goat lived a good, long, healthy life. But all the kids from that day onward wanted Ed on their team. Why do I tell you that story? Well, Ed was courageous to go over that fence when nobody else would. And courage brings opportunity. The world needs courageous men and women. It's a dark world out there. There's a lot to be afraid of. There's a lot of reasons not to step up to the plate. There's a lot of reasons not to volunteer. But the world is looking for courage. Courage is respectable. People are looking for someone who will step up and take courage. And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Actually, the greatest form of courage is doing the right thing when you are afraid. That's the greater courage. That's a greater sense of courage than just not being afraid of what most people are afraid of. But you are afraid and you do the right thing. Ed was courageous, and that courage gave him an opportunity. That courage brought him respect when nobody else wanted to go over that fence. And in your families, live with that type of courage. I'll go get it done. I'll go make the drive. Yeah, I'll work the overtime shift hours, or maybe I'll say no to the overtime because I need time with my family. I'll make the courageous, right decision. And Ed was capable. He was courageous, and he found out, as did everyone else, that he was capable. Even though he was different, his leg was deformed, he couldn't run. That deformity actually caused him to use his arms and his upper body more than the other kids, and he had strong arms. And that deformity caused him to have more focus as he walked and pay attention to details, and his eye-hand coordination was amazing. And he found his place to contribute. He didn't let his handicap stop him. He was capable of contributing to that team. You are capable of contributing to your team, to your family, to your church, to your community. You may have limitations, you may have handicaps, you may have weaknesses. Some of the people who are older and in wheelchairs, or I've had guys that have to step back from work because they're dealing with health issues, but you know what? They become prayer warriors. They become people who reach out to others. They have extra time on their hands. People who are retired. You could be young and talented and smart, able to speak and share and preach. You might not. You might be someone who works with your hands, or mechanics, or a teacher. We're fathers, we're mothers. Whatever you are, you have something to contribute. Be courageous, be confident that you are capable, and give it all you got. I got a few scriptures for you here today. We see in Joshua chapter 1, verses 5 through 9. I'll just read a portion of it. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong, be very courageous, be careful to do all that is according to the law of Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and you will have good success wherever you go. Be strong, be courageous, know what is right and do it, is what the text is saying there. And when you do that, you'll possess the land. In other words, you'll receive the promises that are coming to you. It's only when we give in to fear and we run, or we give in to compromise, or we make excuses. Well, I have a deformed leg, or I have this disease, or I'm short, or I'm old, or I'm too young, or whatever the case is. That's when we lose out. But take courage. Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am the Lord your God. I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will hold you with my righteous right hand. We see these scriptures. Take courage. When you're afraid, that's when courage counts the most, to do what's right. And to speak to our weakness, 2 Corinthians 12:9 through 11 says, when I am weak, that's when I am strong. And what Paul is talking about there, he says, in persecutions, in reproaches, and we know he had his thorn in his side, probably something going wrong with his health. He says, in distress for Christ's sake. He said, when I'm weak, that's when I'm strong. Why is that? Because oftentimes when we're weak, when we're in a little bit over our head, when courage is required, what do? We lean on God. When the sun is shining and all is within our power to achieve things on our own, oftentimes it's when we drift away from God. But when we know we need the Almighty, and we're stepping out on the water, and we need a miracle, or we need God to come through, but we're acting in faith, and we know it's in accordance with His Word. We know this is a good thing to do and a right thing to do, and we summon the courage, and we begin to contribute. That's when God's going to come through and do some great things. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Maybe you got some big decisions to make. Maybe someone in your family or your community, your church, your work needs to step up. Take courage, take control of the situation, and contribute whatever it is you can contribute. Like little Ed, he couldn't run, but the kid could hit. And he had courage. He had that moxie. The world is looking for that. So go shine the light this week. Go be the blessing in your family this week. Be the strong and steady one, because you're walking with God. Open that Bible every day this week. Get into the Psalms. Get into the Gospel of John. Maybe you don't understand it. Start listening to good teachers online and start digging deep, that well deep in your own heart, so that you can be refreshing to everybody throughout your day. Well, like we say each and every episode, there's a whole playlist of these in the description below. So if you want to hear them from the start, go check that out. And make sure between now and next Sunday that you keep on carrying that fire.